Recording in progress.
Okay, we're good to go. All right, it is 5:01 and I call this meeting to order. For the record, my name is Fang Tran, Chair of the FedRAC. On my right is Committee Member Erica Norton, and next to her is Deputy Mayor Honda. On my left, Council President Linda. Thank you. And Council Member Jack Walsh. You have to accuse me because for the last 48 hours, I had only maybe 4 or 5 hours sleep.
Oh, dear.
You traveling again?
No, not travel, but this is much better than travel. My son received a kidney transplant.
Oh.
Yeah, yes, this is the greater gift from God. So
Good for you.
so excited and.
And it's going well then?
It is going well, thank you. Yeah, they still keep him there probably until the weekend, but so far, so good. Yeah. So if I fall off the chair, please, kick me or something. All right, so public comments, do we have any?
There are no public comments.
There's no public comments, thank you.
Councilor Tran, was there an amendment to the agenda?
Oh, yes. Would you like me to go ahead and make a motion? Okay, we would like to add one item to the agenda, so I'm going to go ahead and make the motion to add agenda bill Global Kitchen LLC DBA Catering Contract Amendment 1 as item H.
I second that motion.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The matter passed 2-0. By the way,
Could you excuse?
committee member Jack Dovey is excused.
We think alike.
Thank you. All right, we are moving on to item A, approval of summary minutes. And I believe this is for June 20, let me check the date, because June 28. Thank you.
Just a second. Just a second.
I second that motion.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the matter passed 2-0. We are moving to item B, purchase 5 copiers using replacement reserve. Thomas, welcome.
Well, thank you. Good evening, Chair Tran, committee members, Deputy Mayor, Council President, and Council Member. Yes, I think that covers everybody. So before we're here to present the replacement of 5 copiers, as part of the 21-22 budget, we put together packages of replacement equipment based on their age and whether or not they're needed to be replaced or not, whether or not they need to be replaced or not. Part of this particular package is 5 copiers, 1 for the mayor's office, 2 for community development, 1 for police, and 1 for municipal court that have reached their age and useful life expectancy. And we're out to replace it. We have a quote from our vendor, Copiers Northwest. It's off the NASPO Cooperative Purchasing Contract, and that is for $67,872.90. We have budgeted $73,506 for the total, and so we're slightly under budget, which is a good thing considering all of the price increases that have been happening. So we're good there, and then the maintenance and operations of these equipment will fall under the existing contract that we already have with Copiers Northwest. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to present, or happy to answer.
Anyone have any questions? Nope.
I move to forward the proposed purchase of 5 copiers to the August 9, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
Thank you, and I second that. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Matter passed 2-0. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along. We are Moving to item C, AP vouchers 6/16/2022 to 7/15/2022, and payroll vouchers 6/1/22 to 6/30/2022. Chase.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor Honda, Council Committee members, and Council Chair Tran. Before you are the vouchers, AP vouchers in the amount of $2,773,246.19, and payroll vouchers in the amount of $4,368,347.71. We did send an email out before the meeting answering a number of questions to Deputy Mayor Honda and the council, and we'd be happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Deputy Mayor.
Oh, thank you, and thank you for the answers. I do have a question on the police vehicles. So I asked how many we needed to purchase. So this was for five vehicles and 2 motorcycles. So we budgeted for 43 vehicles and 6 motorcycles, so then we've only purchased 7 out of the 43?
That's correct.
So are the rest of them going to be purchased in 2022 or 2023, or?
They're budgeted for 2022, and I think it's expected that they'll be delivered within that year. If they're not, there would have to be a carryover budget amendment in order to rebudget that amount, and that would have to come before council.
Okay, because that's a lot of cars to be expecting in the next few months.
Yeah, I know there is a delay, but they're trying to get the cars as quickly as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just had a question on this medical claims, 266,000. What is that?
Yeah, so we're a self-insured city, and so we pay our claims to Kaiser on a monthly basis, but
Okay.
it's for claims that are submitted on a self-insured basis.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none. May I have a motion?
I move to forward the vouchers to the August 9th, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
I'll second that. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The matter passed 2-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we are moving to item D, Tourism Enhancement Grant, Bodybuilding.
This is an easy item. The Lodging Tax Advisory Committee met recently, July 15th, and they reviewed a request, and it's for an event that's going to be held at the Performing Arts and Event Center. The application, it forecasts, I put in my memo, 1,195 participants, but, they were, part of the discussion in the LTAC meeting was that, that really isn't unique people. That's kind of double counting the people that came on Friday and Saturday and Sunday. It's got 870 unique participants, which sounds like a lot, but 141 room nights is really what Lodging Tax is looking to review, generate, and confirm. So that tells you how many people that they are anticipating to come from a distance greater than 50 miles. So because most of the participants aren't generating room nights, so it looks like a lot of them are going to be local to Seattle, Tacoma. The applicant requested 6,000, but because of the criteria the LTAC committee tries to adhere to, looking at the scope of how far people are coming, and but really the overnight hotel rooms is what they're looking for. And payment is always contingent on the post-event report confirming attendance and room nights, and the grant is within the currently approved budget for this fund. So I am just forwarding this from the committee. I did attend the meeting. I would try to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Steve. Council President?
Thank you, Steve. Can you tell us how are we marketing this venue? I mean, I can see where they've applied, and it's an ongoing.
Yeah, it's a repeat event. It's got professionals and amateurs, and the people themselves do the promotion. They've done it before. They're expanding a little bit, but I couldn't, off the top of my head, tell you where they advertise or what that is.
I'm wondering if we shouldn't have a review, Chair, about how we're marketing our venues.
Mhm.
I mean, are we
Yeah,
just,
I think because the LTAC is comprised of hoteliers and recipients, I think I think they do have that discussion, and I just don't retain that. I
but
think-
maybe what we really need is a plan
Mhm.
from, first of all, the PAC is being promoted by outside our staff, my understanding, right?
Sure, I don't know that the PAC is advertising this event. I think the event
No, I mean, that's fine for this event.
promoters are, yeah.
I'm just wondering overall how we're marketing and where we're marketing, and maybe we need to have an impetus on marketing our different venues.
Mhm. I can pass that on to the appropriate people.
I've been wanting to talk to John and others about, in the Parks Committee, discussing more of a marketing plan for the PAC, Dumas Bay, and the community center, and see what we can do to have a coordinated marketing effort on that. Find out just exactly what's going on now and what needs to take place in order to more effectively market them.
Absolutely. The city has an interest in the Performing Arts Center. Lodging tax has an interest in seeing that the money is spent that furthers overnight hotel stays, which has a multiplier effect on the local economy. And the fact that they're using our venue gives us a little inside information.
Chair, can I?
Oh, go ahead.
I thought my understanding with the PAC performances was that when they rent the facility, staff talks to them about marketing and what expectations they have, and it's not completely up to the PAC. Is that how it works, or can you answer that?
Anything that is booked at the Performing Arts and Event Center that isn't directly a show put on by the PAC is left up to them to market their own tickets. We obviously put it on the website as well as our social media pages, but that is something that would go directly through the promoter of the event if they are renting the facility, so to speak, and not being bought as a show for the facility.
So if it's put on by the PAC,
Then we are in charge of the marketing efforts. And all of the marketing currently for shows is done on a show-by-show basis because it's based off of the target market and the reach for that. So each marketing plan for each show is different. But Brian, at our next meeting, I'll bring that forth so we can answer a little bit deeper on that.
so then the PAC would have for the programs that are not marketed or by the PAC, it's up to them to bring in, to do whatever marketing they want to do to bring in people to see the performance.
That is correct. And most of the promoters have their own marketing plans put together. I know specifically bodybuilding does as well, between social media and other radio and TV advertisements.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank
Jack,
you.
do you still have questions? Oh, okay. Just want to make sure. Is there any other questions? No?
I move to forward the tourism enhancement request to the August 9, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
Second. Any other questions for Steve? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, matter passed 2-0. Thank you, Steve. We are moving along. Okay, item E, resolution, interfund loan. This is gonna be a fun thing. Go ahead, Steve.
This is more fun than we should probably be allowed to have, right? In your packet, you have some material that I put together providing financing options, but I have fielded some questions since then that reminded me that I need to do a little bit more background. The policy question in the packet, and I really need to learn how to hide this. That's it. That's what I want to do, right there. The policy question is, should City Council approve the proposed resolution authorizing an interfund loan to refinance the current debt associated with the former Target property? If approved here and forwarded to council, this would come on council business. This would not come on consent. I believe that's because it's a resolution. And the first thing that I have is I have a little bit of chronology because I have access to the finance history. In 2013, the city initially issued debt of $8.2 million. In 2017, There was a sale of a part of the property that allowed us to pay down $2.2 million, which left us with $6 million. And I believe that was at the time of refinance. This is a bank loan with Key Bank, and the terms of this loan called for no debt service in 2018. We had principal reduction in 2019, 20, and 21 of about 200, 400, and 400, just to use round numbers, which leaves us, the loan called for a final payment on November 17th of this year. So I'm bringing it with sufficient time for us to talk about it and make sure that we have the planning that we need to do and discuss options. But so we would call this a balloon payment, and just looking at the numbers. See, things are often just numbers on paper to somebody sitting in finance until I find out what's happening in the real world. And so I would think, well, my goodness, we must not have expected this loan to still exist. The background that I can tell you, this is the property that is adjacent or near both the Performing Arts and Event Center, Town Square Park. It's very near Sound Transit. It's across the street from Gateway Center, a very key property. And it's pretty common for cities to take a very strong leadership role in seeing that a property like this gets used the way that the city wants to have done. I understand that there were some problems in past years because there was a delay. We couldn't move forward because of an easement that needed to be navigated and acquired. That was solved, I believe, earlier this year. And I think you all know that planning has got a study in process. I think they call it TC3, and there's a lot of master planning kind of stuff going on. And so clearly there's a lot of discussion going on to get to the highest and best use, which is exactly what you want as a policy body. The finance, however, needs to be dealt with by November 17th. So the options that we would normally look at would be, could we consider paying it off in full? We want to look at our liquidity. Could we refinance it, but with an intent to pay down? Do we want to end up owning this property? And then a third option would be to refinance internally if we wanted to extend the time to explore options further. And I will I want to take the time here in committee to go through this in a little bit more detail, because some people have asked, well, why in the world are we buying $1 million investments every month instead of paying down debt? Or why do we have $5 million of debt coming due and we've got $100 million as a city? And the answer is, as of December 31st, and the reason I chose December 31st is because that was our last audited financial. During the year, we tend to get ups and downs of seasonality on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, this is absolutely fixed. We have got 5 pieces of debt. 4 of them are being paid out of real estate excise tax. What that means is in our budgets, we have planned for REIT to pay for the payments. Doesn't mean they can pay it off in full, but that's certainly where we've been paying it. And the reason we can do that is because real estate excise tax, REIT, can be used for facilities projects, typically with parks and streets. And this is so the target property fit that eligibility. Now, I've got a red line over the particular piece of GO bond that we're looking at. That's I'm calling it an even $5 million. But there's also another $8, $10, and $4 million, totaling $27 million that is being paid for by REIT. Now, if you look over at the right-hand side, this shows that the city had a total of $93 million. It's kind of gone up recently. We got another ARPA payment of $9 million. So we are in the neighborhood of having $100 million. But where is that $100 million? General fund has got an excess of $21 million. But we know half of that is ARPA, and then half of that is the fund balance that we are required by our own fund balance policy to maintain. And the general fund is the one that we want to be the most guarded with, because that's the only unrestricted fund that we have. Every other fund below there has a restriction, and I can describe several of them. Let's go down the list just a little bit. Transportation capital, there is $8.5 million in the fund balance there, but that's our street projects, and those are major projects that we need to do, and we need to be attending to those every single year. We need to be doing I think of it as a math problem. We want to be doing 1/20th of our 20-year projects. The ones that last 20 years, we had better be doing 1/20th of them, 1/10 of them. So every year, we have to make sure that we are attending to our transportation, our streets and signals and all that stuff. Fleet, we have about $16 million in total assets of all of our vehicles. That would be parks and police and public works and community development. So about half of that we have been accumulating to replace vehicles, and we can't rob that fund. That would be shooting ourselves in the foot. We would be unable to take care of our vehicle replacement on the schedule that we have in place. Then we come to the real estate excise tax fund. That has got a fund balance of $4 million. That has got to cover all of the fund balance, all of the debt service, plus the projects that we normally budget. Information systems is similar to our vehicle fund. This is the replacement fund for our IT fixed assets. Downtown development capital, we've got $3.9 million, but that is a LIFT, local infrastructure financing tool. That's a state grant program, and that's a restricted fund that can only be used for infrastructure projects, and the target building property doesn't qualify for that. Utility tax and everything on down, health insurance, self-insurance, all of these funds, every one of these is a restricted fund. So in order for us to be able to say, why can't we, a city with $100 million in cash, pay off $5 million in debt? Are you telling me we don't have $5 million we can spend? I'm telling you, yes, that's correct. We budget very tightly every biennium so that we know where our payments and what the projects are going to do. And we do keep reserve balances. There's a strategic reserve partway down the list for crisis, and this isn't a crisis. This is a scheduled project. So we want to feel like we're managing the city well. We want to be able to be answerable to our citizens, that we are stewarding all of our restricted funds. They're always spent according to the restrictions on them. And so all of that is a long way to say that I don't see a way for us to pay off the debt in full. And I don't think we anticipated that when we issued the debt. I don't think we ever anticipated fully paying it off. I think it was anticipated to be developed and it would go away at some point. Option one, if we were to want to purchase this property, refinance over, say, 10 years, the bank, Key Bank has told us that, well, this was a couple weeks old, that the current rate they would give us would be 3.3%. We could refinance with an intent to ultimately own the property after 10 years, keep it. The payments would be just about $600,000 a year. We would have to fit that into our budget. But this would be assuming that we wanted to keep the property, and that would be our intent. I don't think that was our original intent. Option two is if we, this one I'm just showing because I'm going to be showing you some 3-year options. At the same rate, at 3.3%, if we were to accelerate and wanted to purchase this entire property and have it paid off in 3 years, the payments then go to 1.7 million, almost 1.8 million. Now, the next option, if we were to do an internal loan to ourselves, we would only have to charge ourselves what we earn on our own money. So I'm going to change the interest rate from 3.3% down to 1.4%. And you can see that doesn't change the payments very much. We would still have to navigate payments of 1.7 million. So the fourth option would be is if we don't have an intent to ultimately own the property, if this $5 million isn't quite big enough of a bond issue to go through all the closing costs, but if we were to say, if we were in the background contemplating a further debt for our maintenance and operations shop, that would be a bond issue that would make sense, that we could consider piggybacking this, but we're not going to do that just immediately. I really do have to deal with the $5 million balloon payment by November. So this would impact the general fund or REIT by $70,000 a year. That is very doable within our budget. It would buy us some time. Buying time buys us options. And then we could proceed further, we could see how the master planning is going, how what the planning department brings back to us, and it would also give us financing options. So this is the option that staff recommends, and I think that hopefully I've answered why we can't just pay it off, and why an interfund loan serves us. And doing an internal loan, it abides by the requirements of the state statutes. You can only do an interfund loan up to 3 years, but that does give us the revenue. So, it's like taking the revenue out of one pocket, putting it in the other. Same pair of pants. It's a different fund within the city, so it would benefit some of the funds that we do have reserve balances. We would have to extinguish it within 3 years. We've done a lot of interfund loans in the years, and I know that there's a list that I could get staff to come back. I know that recently we did LED lighting in the city, and that was one of the things that comes to our mind that you've probably seen. A lot of cities use this. It's a really helpful tool, and it fits us at a time where we just need a little bit more time. When we had originally, we must have been thinking that we weren't going to have to deal with the balloon payment. So the recommendation is to authorize an interfund loan to refinance the current debt associated with the former target property, and the reason is it allows us further options, including long-term bond issuance, while minimizing impact to our services. I tried to give this some time. I hope that this hasn't been too tedious. I'm trying to answer your questions, but if you have more,
Thank you for your,
discussion.
yeah, thank you for your presentation. Committee member Erica, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for your presentation, Director Groom. And will you please bring up the chart that showed the different funding sources? It had REIT on one side and then
Yep.
the general fund on the other side.
I sure can.
Is that something that you sent to us before, or is this just in your presentation?
Whoops. I had shown it before, and I had to go looking for it. It was not in your packet. I will
Okay,
confess
I
it.
didn't see it.
I have shown it before.
May I please, the liquidity by fund, okay, may I please have a copy of that?
Yes. I am happy to do that.
And then, okay, so my question is, so you said that I just wrote down 21 million in change, so $21,542,509, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so that's how much is in the general fund, and I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So what you're saying is that you would remove $5,016,656 out of the general fund, and you would pay that target off, just pay that off, that debt.
I'm saying we can't do that because that $21 million is spoken for in two ways. We know that 9 million of it, this was the first.
Right, that's ARPA.
It was ARPA, which we know
Okay.
came into us, and we're planning on spending that.
Right.
And then the other half is the reserve balance that we're required to keep.
So where did you say that it was coming from? Because I didn't understand that then. I apologize.
Oh, in the resolution, we are proposing that the funds that have balances that we could loan for 3 years, one of them was the fleet fund, that could loan
see.
the money.
Okay,
Oh, golly.
Downtown development.
Fleet and equipment, the downtown redevelopment money, the lift fund, and the transportation capital.
and that's
Those
in
are-
the packet, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so you propose that the funding would be loaned from those
From those-
sources? And then
right.
we would pay that off, and then we would repay those funding sources over time? And pay it back? Is that
Ulti-
correct?
Ultimately, I believe we plan, ultimately, I think we plan to divest this property. We plan to
Right.
develop it. So we think within 3 years, we should have a plan to develop it. That's where the repayment to fleet and downtown capital
Okay.
and
So I seem
come
to
from.
remember seeing something just in the back of my mind about doing a demo on the Target building. Am I correct?
that, yes, you are. That's on the.
Is that
propo-
also part of, so we're gonna pay it off and demo it?
You know, to tell you the truth, I had a little bit of a concern when I saw that we were proposing to demo it when we had a loan from Key Bank, because Key
Okay.
Bank could say, what are you doing destroying the asset that
Right.
the loan is around? But if it's on our own money, we also think we're improving it by taking away a liability, but we wouldn't have to have the discussion with the bank.
Okay. All right, thank you
And-
very much. I
Good
appreciate
question,
it.
thank you.
Council member, just to be clear, the proposal is not to pay off the property. It's to basically take out a loan for 3 years, and at the end of the loan, we're only paying interest on it. So we'll still.
A loan
we
from
won't-
ourselves.
We'll still have, yeah, we'll still have, either need to, at that point, bond it and buy it if we're gonna keep the property, or sell it.
Okay, so we're gonna take a loan from ourselves,
We're
and then we're gonna
refinancing
give the
debt.
bank that money, and then we're gonna pay interest only to ourselves
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
We're refinancing a debt, basically.
with our money.
Right.
Okay. That is just amazing. Who thought of that? Who was that? Was that you?
It takes a village.
So smart. So smart.
Jack?
So, so basically, you know, I'm looking, you know, later on today, this evening, you're gonna be going over where the city's investment and interest revenue is at. Basically, would it be taking some, you mentioned specific funds that would be drawn from, but basically, would we be, instead of doing additional investments in that for a period of time, we be using this as our investment?
For those 3 funds, right, exactly.
Okay. And so basically, on your little chart here that shows, that you'll be showing us to us later on, only of course now I'm not finding it, where it says where the different investments are at, that it would in effect be one of those investments.
Yeah, our total pool, we would, the money that we have invested, there's still quite a bit in the state pool, so these 3 funds that we would be borrowing from would be taken out of the state fund to get it paid off to the bank.
Be taken out of the state funded,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, because
all right.
we pool all the money for all of the funds to invest, and part of it's in the state pool where it's still liquid.
So in 3 years, suppose that it hasn't developed, hasn't sold, anything like that in 3 years, could we renew that loan again and do it again? Or would we have to be then at that point going to the bank and?
At that point, we would have to go to the bank or issue a bond. We can't roll over an interfund loan. The state statutes are really pretty clear, because if we're borrowing and lending restricted money, we do not want to divert the money from those restrictions unless it's temporarily, and our auditors will look to make sure it's 3 years or less. So we can't do it in perpetuity. That would be cheating, and we don't do that.
Okay, all right. So is there any, you've mentioned all the pros of doing this.
Yeah.
Are there any cons?
Ultimately, if in 3 years we haven't developed, we're going to have to budget some debt service and start paying it down with an external mechanism, so we would incur some interest for real.
But that would be no different than if we were to do it today. So
Right.
it wouldn't be any bigger con than if it were being
Correct.
done that way today.
Correct.
So anything other than that, any cons other than that?
Ultimately, we want to do what's best for the city, which is develop the property, because ultimately, sales tax and property tax is what we're looking for. And so we're buying, to be honest, I'm trying to buy us 3 more years to help.
Yeah, I'm just looking
Explore the
at
options.
worst case scenario, so.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so worst case scenario, we'd be no worse off than if we were to do it today.
Right.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Erica and Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. Just one more question. Okay, so have you determined the exact amount that would be coming out of the fleet, downtown, and transportation capital funds?
Not really,
Okay,
because we want to watch all of the funds and see how their spending is going. But I think all 3 of them are easily doable. We could split it up, and they'll be able to have enough liquidity in each of the funds foreseeably.
and each of those funds, does each of those have a minimum amount that they can have in them, and not be touched anymore, or is that something that,
A lot of our restricted funds don't have fund balance requirements because
Just
they're
the general
restricted, and
fund.
so they're intended to be used for their purpose.
okay, thank you.
Any red flags going off in your head,
Thank you.
Chase, feel free to jump in.
So I have some more questions in addition to what I sent you earlier today. How many interfund loans do we currently have?
Currently, I believe we have, we're just in the current year, I think, paying off the LED one, and then there's one involving CDBG. Is that right? Yep. And they're
And how
they're
long-
reported on our CAFR, on our audited financials every year. That,
And how long is left on those two? 1 year?
I think
Less than
this
a
is the
year?
last year for the LED one, yeah.
And what are we gonna do with that next year then?
It's gotta be paid off. It's in our budget, the budget, it's in our budget to pay it down.
Okay. In the fleet budget that you list here, does that include the ARPA funding to buy the new police vehicles?
In the fund balance
Yes.
budget, that was as of December 31st. That's when we had received the first half of it, and by now we've received the second half, so we now have another 9.6 million.
Right, I understand that, but so can you go back to the page you just had?
Yes.
That had so the fleet balance at is 7,584,797.
Oh,
Does that include the money from
Oh.
ARPA?
I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. No, that does not. That is only what each of the funds has contributed every year.
Okay. What happens if we don't pay the balloon payment in November?
I can't.
Pretty
comment.
sure the loan is secured by the property.
Okay. And then my last request is, so in 2013, when this property was purchased, over the last years since we've had the property, we put money into it for maintenance, for going out every 3 years or so. I know this isn't the first time we've had to refinance it. We've done that a few times before. I'd like to know all of the costs incurred with this property since we purchased it. And I don't want that tonight, I just want that sometime before we vote on this. I'd be very interested in that. So that's all I have, thank you.
Great. Well, all of the council members asked great questions, so I just want to kind of recap this with only one question. So in your opinion, the interfund option is the most cost-effective because we don't have to go through the closing costs and appraisal and things like that. Am I right?
Yes, and we also don't pay a bank external interest.
Okay, the interest will go actually to us instead.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
We done?
I
Ready?
think we ready.
I move to forward the proposed resolution to the August 9, 2022 for council business.
I'll second that. Any other question for Steve or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the matter passed 2-0. Thank you. And we are moving to item F, monthly financial report, June 2022.
Okay, I try to make this a little bit different every month to make it somewhat interesting. This is the halfway point. We have closed the books on the month of June, so month 6 of 12 is done. And in your packet, you've got a memo, and in the very first sentence, always gives you lets us put the finger on the pulse of where we are with revenue, and revenues are favorable year-to-date. I think last month we might have been unfavorable with the timing of property tax, but we're favorable this month by 4.5%, and expenditures are also favorable, very small percent, 1.1%, and this is what that looks like on the graph. The revenues much more favorable than the expenses are under budget. When I look at individual revenue lines, and these are drawn from the tables that are in your packet. I've just made one complete table that shows if we look at our actuals compared to budget, or if we look at our actual revenue compared to prior year. It's all green for good. Sales tax is up, utility tax, property tax, and last month our property tax was unfavorable compared to prior year. But this month we are all looking favorable compared to how we budgeted and compared to what came in last year. Some of these are quite sizable, and some of these are really good economic indicators to give you a sense of how the city's doing as we all hold our breath in the current economy. But but this is factual. This is historical. This is actual cash in the bank. We only report this when we have received the remittances from the state or the county on each of those. On the expense side, we're favorable 1.1%, but each department is managing to its own departmental budget. They have a very little amount of wiggle room to respond to service needs, and the fact that they're really close to budget kind of tells us that. So every month we look at how they're doing compared to budget, and if we need to move stuff between lines for a department, we can do that to help them course correct. I do want to bring a significant milestone, and I am bragging about my department here, because this is Finance Committee. I want to let you know, a little drama here with the, we have achieved the $1 million mark on our investments, just our last 4 that we picked up. Rates are now in the neighborhood of 3%, which, we don't know where they're going, but we have stuck to the exact plan that we said we were. And the reason that we have gotten to 1.1 million is because now we have invested $36 million. And this was kind of a point where back when rates were under 1%, I really wasn't sure if we would want to go farther. When we look at where our cash is, I mentioned that we got the second half of our ARPA money. So that's what that little bump up is in the month of June. We got $9.6 million. Now we know we're going to spend it. We all have plans for that money in the next year or two that is going to go away. But down below, you can see that we have very methodically kept up with our investing. So the little blue bars are earning $504,000, and the green stuff in the middle, that's our position in the state pool. The state pool interest rates have come up to 1%. So that's where our interest comes in, and so we only anticipate them going up a little bit further this is on the investment side, of course. So the amount of money that we have in total, this is where it's at. The large pale green pie slice there, that's the amount that we still have in the investment pool. And you ask yourself, well, how much more of that could we invest? And I would say, well, part of it we cannot touch. We know that $18 million is ARPA. We're not going to invest that. We're not going to lock that into anything for 3 years. That is going to be spent, so we have to ignore that. The remaining amount, though, however, I think about half of it, if we invested another $24 million, that would still leave us $24 million of liquidity. So we're watching and we're proceeding very slowly because rates could still go up. You hate to buy something early, but then you also have to develop a plan and stick with it. So that's what we're trying to do. So the status, in summary, of the finances of the city, we're on track with budget. All of the departments are staying within their budgets, delivering the service levels that we expected them to do when you adopted the budget. We're monitoring revenues. We're adding a little bit more in investing. We got $1 million. I think we can get it up to $1.5 million, just a little bit further, and that's budgetable for next year. And then we're monitoring the economic cycle. So as we start looking towards next year's budget, the bad news that I need to make sure that I bring every month, and I share this with our department heads because they need to be looking at what's going to cost us additional money next year. This would be materials. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics released the latest number in June. There's been 13 months over 5%. We know that the Fed is working with the interest rates and decreasing the money supply to curb inflation. So we will keep track. We're going to have to pass a budget with whatever information we have in the next couple months. And Finance is just about done forecasting revenues. We have had several internal meetings with all department heads sharing the needs of the department. I have told them, no promises. I do want to know what the needs of the city are that aren't in the budget so that we can maintain a really solid working list of what we could prioritize. Brian Davis, the interim city manager, is working with all the department heads so that citywide, we can look at what the needs are. Because as much as we want to know what's in the budget, you also need to be honest and transparent about what's not in the budget, what we're not able to do. So we're assuming a baseline budget. We're going to have to budget within revenue, and I use the term baseline cautiously because, of course, there are obligatory cost increases. That would be increases due to costs or licensing, insurance rates for both our risk management program and our employee benefit insurance. Those always go up. And then there's also costs when we're doing the scheduled or perpetual replacement. We have to always be perpetually replacing our police cars, all of our vehicles, and our IT assets. So the mayor's budget is due to you on September 1st. We have study sessions. The city clerk will be putting out a calendar, and I have a draft on my next slide from September 14th through the 18th. That's when we will be briefing you on the revenues that are being forecasted, also on the entire budget process. The departments will get a chance to give you briefings. We'll talk about long-term infrastructure. And this is a schedule I have put in my proposed topics for each of the budget workshops. We would want to start with the revenue forecasts and the economic assumptions. And from there, we'd listen to all the departments. We would want you to have a time to weigh in on your priorities. We want to look at the debt and operation shop planning. So there's quite a few dates that the city clerk will be getting with you to calendar if we need them. And then we go to having the public hearings and the adoption of the budget. And that will get us, that will keep us, that'll keep our reputation with the state statutes and the county that needs our rate ordinance and all that. And that is everything I can possibly think of to give you your monthly update on the finances. I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Steve. Erica, go ahead.
Director Groom, thank you so much for such a lovely presentation. I'm practicing. Okay, so is the LGIP investment investing in the U.S. Treasury bonds?
Mm-hmm.
So
They
we get a lower
invested-
percentage rate on that. So my question is it at a smaller risk if it's in LGIP than it is if we just do direct investment in Treasury bonds?
Interestingly, they are investing mostly in everything we invest in, treasuries and agencies and a few other things, but they're all the federal guaranteed stuff. What they're doing differently is they're only buying very short maturities. I'm buying the things that are going out 5 years.
Okay.
Because they're holding all the city's money, and so they have to be very liquid, and they have a
Okay.
little bit different rules.
And it's a smaller percentage because they're also taking a cut out of that.
They do have an admin fee, it's not much, yep, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. I know I already asked you that before. I just wanted to clarify.
No, but there's
Appreciate
people
it.
watching that appreciate you asking and hearing the answer, forcing me to say it publicly.
Thank you.
Jack?
Yeah. Hey, with the sales tax revenue, a question on your different charts there by areas. First off, I would still like to see a graph line there for online sales, that aren't brick and mortar here in
I
Federal
know
Way,
you would, and I'm not gonna give it to you, and I'm just not gonna make you happy, and I feel badly about that.
So, I mean, well, why can't that be?
That's because the one retailer that is the 800-pound gorilla in that category is protected from us divulging proprietary information. We cannot legally give any single retailer's sales tax that would allow their competitors, as if they had any competitors, information they could divide by the rate and find out how much they're selling in our town.
would it be possible to, I mean, if we know what our total sales tax revenue is, and then we can know what it is by the different areas.
Now, is part of your concern whether we're collecting?
You know, I want to make sure that we
Yeah.
are accurately collecting it
Yeah.
as part of it. And you know, I mean, that's a big part of it right there. Make sure that it is accurately
Make sure
coming
that we're
in.
collecting what's due us according to
Yes.
the destination of the transaction,
Right.
which is in our city boundaries. And the State Department of Revenue is our auditor, and I've had conversations with them, and they audit on a rotation, and they feel that they're auditing sufficiently.
Okay. And then also.
Because I
with-
care as much as you do, I really do.
So, on this tax revenue by location, and you have Gateway Center Pavilion, the Commons, 312, 316, 348. Is any of those include the area across the mall, which has been deleted, or a large portion of it has been deleted because of the Sound Transit station? And do we have any figures on what the impact that Sound Transit taking the property has had on our sales tax revenue?
I don't think I know the answer to that. I'm looking at Chase to see if you happen to have an opinion. Feel free.
Yeah, we don't have anything created that is by the businesses within that location currently. It's, each of those locations is manually created, so it's.
Yeah, I mean, what, you know, can we figure out what kind of hit did we take with Sound Transit taking the property?
You're asking about the decrease in.
Decrease in sales tax
In
because of.
commerce because of the
Yeah.
store businesses that were
Right,
removed?
yeah. I mean, none of those stores there were really high revenue stores, but still, I mean, hey, they still had an impact.
Yeah, and when we did a ranking, there was a lot of retailers in this city, my goodness. Yeah, we'll look at that,
Okay, all right, okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I need to find the graph again. On the, business license revenue graph, says page 104. In May, we had from May to June, there was quite a difference. What was it, why is that?
You know, the business licenses are now done online at the state. We do get some kind of reports, but I don't know what we do. Chase, do you happen to know?
Yeah, I don't have the specific businesses, but we can pull that together.
I mean, it's pretty significant. Okay, I'd like to know about that. Also, on the community development permit activity graph, there's a big difference between May and June too.
Yeah, we can, you know, I show the detail of that occasionally to Brian Davis because he has an interest in who things were, and I don't, off the top of my head, remember. Because some of those are big commercial projects. Yeah.
And then the real estate excise tax revenue graph, there's also a huge difference between May and June. So I guess May was really great for us and June not so great, or is this?
Yeah, and on that one, there's two factors. There's rising property values, which is good because the tax on anything that goes up is good. But then the volume, we wonder about the volume, and because of mortgage rates going up, the volume of real estate transactions is decreasing. Now, I'm thinking residential primarily there. I believe in May, there was one, or maybe one really large and one kind of large commercial property that changed hands. And so those are kind of one-time things,
Right.
which kind of spikes our normal volume of the residential activity.
And the utility tax rebate program, so that's done, you've processed all of the claims that you've had? You don't have anything more? So we did 24 rebates in 2022.
Go ahead.
That's correct.
I've talked with Sarah about this, you know, and she was, I believe, going to be speaking to Brian Davis and then seeing what could come from it. But we really do need to somehow change this so that next year we get back to where we're processing quite a bit more and really having our citizens, our
Sure,
residents use a program like it should be used.
Sure, we define the program and when we want to put it out. And
So I know it's in finance and it's not in community development, but there needs to be a change because this doesn't work. You know, this needs to be out so that the public knows that it's there, that people can use it because we want to help people.
sure.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Steve, I have a question regarding the investment, the interest that we make. So the money that we make, is that going to become like the unrestricted pool of money?
Yes, in the most recent investment policy that we wrote, state statute permits us to use it all in the general fund. If we need it in the general fund, it's all spendable, so we will budget that. Finance department isn't asking for any of it. I say that tongue in cheek. But it's all spendable in the general fund, which is exactly where we're probably going to need it.
Great, great. Thank you for that. I just want to say, on behalf of the committee, we really appreciate your leadership in regard to the investment. Once you get on board and you start, that ball rolling, and thanks to you and your staff.
You know, I failed to mention, this is my second July FedRec. I've been here a year. Got $1 million in 1 year.
Yeah.
Thank you for the teamwork and my staff. It's not just me, it's the whole team. Yep.
Good
Yep.
job.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, $1 million is a lot of money. I mean, we can do a lot
I have no-
with that
I
money.
have no
So
doubt that you'll find ways to spend it.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you, staff in the department. We really appreciate it. Okay. All right, so with that, we are moving to.
I move to forward.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
I move to forward the June 2022 monthly financial report to the August 9, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You see, I'm so excited, I forgot things.
And
All
the next-
right.
And the next item, I'm just going to kick off discussion for you. Typically, I understand historically, traditionally, we do not have an August meeting, so on your agenda, we have taken the liberty of saying that the next meeting will be September 27th, but it requires you to make it so.
Yes, sir. To keep up with the tradition, we are not gonna have FedRAC meeting in August. So our next meeting is going to be on September 27, 5 p.m. in this chamber. And now we are moving to our last item, item H. Autumn, welcome.
Good evening, Councilmember Tran, Deputy Mayor Honda, Council President Kochmar, and other committee members. Thank you for getting this onto the agenda this evening. We went out to solicit bids in February of 2022 as our catering model changed for Dumas Bay Center. We entered into a contract with Global Kitchen LLC, or DBAK Catering as they're known. That contract allows all of our clients to work directly with her for catering services. It also allows for internal city services if we host an event down at Dumas Bay. One of the things that has come before us is that we do have some events that were scheduled prior to the onset of COVID-19. Those events have been postponed and rolled over into this current year. So the city did receive payment for those events. We let them postpone them through COVID, and now we are rescheduling them and having them. The policy question before you asks, should the City Council approve an amendment to the contract with Global Kitchen LLC, DBAK Catering, to allow the city to provide funds already paid to the city for catering services to the contracted caterer on behalf of the client? I'm happy to answer any questions about this. It is just an amendment to our current contract. But at this time, if you have questions, I can answer those.
Thank you. Yep. Questions?
I have a question. So, folks paid the catering costs
Correct.
And we kept the money?
Yes, so when they prepaid for their events or paid all of their deposits, and then during COVID, initially when we shut down, it was 2 weeks or then 4 weeks. We sort of played it by ear as we rolled through cancellations. Some events moved forward 3 months and then another 3 months, and fast forward 2 years later, here we are. We didn't do any refunds during that time. All we did is we allowed them to continue to push their date forward if they would like to, and that's where we are now.
So have costs increased since they paid their,
Slightly, yes.
will they pay a difference, or are they going to just keep what they had in
At
their
this
contract?
time, they won't be paying a difference, no.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions?
I move to forward the proposed Dumas Bay Center catering contract amendment to the August 9, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
I'll second that. Any other question for Autumn? Here none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, the matter passed 2-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, this meeting is concluded. Thank you. Ooh, exactly 1 o'clock. I mean, 1 hour. Yes.
You didn't get us out early. That's what I'm talking about. Yes. Oh, why'd you have to remind me?
Is there